What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 146, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, and on today's episode, we have new details about Avowed. Red Dead Redemption Remaster is not really a remaster at all, and is a new Series X coming. We have all that and more, but first, let me introduce my co-host, JamPackSam. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? I am happy to be here once again, doing very well. Had a lot of games in the log this week that I've been getting into, so excited to share more about that. But yeah, another week of cool gaming news, and once again, I don't think we have any of the lawsuit legalities ongoing. No one's trying to stop any mergers, so it's another good week of Xbox talk.
Of actually talking about games. It's a rare change of pace for some, I imagine, out there that do some Xbox podcasts. I don't know what they're doing. No content to talk about the ABK deal, all right? So they're scrambling.
It's great. I was thinking about that in the gym this week because I used to listen to all the updates in the gym while I was on the treadmill or whatever. And I'm like, the entire first half of July was all this, like, it's going down in 3 hours. Here we go. Nothing. Radio silence for like 3 weeks. That thing died. Not the deal, but like discussion around it. It's it was crazy to see that just go away.
Yeah. I imagine it'll pick back up when I think at the end of this month is the CMA's deadline. But we got some time. At this point, I'm basically like, we're just gonna be like, it's done, it's confirmed. Let's talk about what games we're gonna play. But
yeah.
I'm looking forward to some chatting today. Avowed specifically. I know we're gonna get into that, but before we do, if you like this podcast, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube and rate us 5-star on all audio feeds. We're Apple, Spotify. We passed 50 on Spotify, so thank you so much for that. If you do rate us, you get entered to win that Starfield Premium Digital Deluxe Edition. Gets you that 5-day early access. And if you like us and want to support us more, head over to patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Bucky Blue, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Brianna's wife, Nikolai at Night, Cypher, Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, The Snack Network, David Hotright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, and Alpaca Tom. Thank you for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. And I do want to give a heads up for any patrons listening. I have enabled the Spotify synchronizing feature on our Patreon. So what that allows you to do is if you are a patron and you're like, yo, this Patreon app sucks to listen to my podcast on, and you prefer Spotify, you now can sync your account to your Patreon account and listen to all of our audio feed on Spotify. It'll be locked for everyone else, but if you're a patron, you get that content. It's like the RSS feed for the other audio feeds, but Spotify doesn't let you do that, so they came up with this. But throwing it out there, everyone, hope that makes your life easier. Sam, I think that's all the housekeeping we need to get out of the way. So why don't we jump into what you've been playing this week?
So I actually was inspired by what you said that you were not into last week. I know that you mentioned in passing, I think Dead Space Remake was one that was just not one that you vibed with earlier in the year. Is that right?
It was fine. Like it was my first time playing Dead Space, and I liked it. I'm not over there like, oh, it's the best survival horror game of all time, or like, you know, people hold it up in such high regard, including my brother, who like absolutely loved it and has 100% on like every single Dead Space game. But I liked it. It was fine.
Yeah. I think that maybe there was a little bit of hype towards the beginning of the year that blew it out of proportion a little bit because it is just a straight 1-to-1 remake. It is a beautiful looking game. But all of that to say, whenever it came out in, I believe that was February, I played about 2/3 of it and then I just put it down. Other stuff came out. And so this week, after hearing you talk about it in passing on the show or on social or something, I was like, you know what? It's time to go back and wrap that bad boy up. So I went back, I finished Dead Space Remake, and I rolled credits on it. Really good time. And it was just cool to see a game that I had played a couple of years ago via backward compatibility get a fresh coat of paint. And so I've played Dead Space technically 2 times in the past 2 years, with one of the original, one the remake. So now I'm hyped for potentially a Dead Space 2 remake if it does end up coming down the pike. And then that directly led me into, hey, I should go back to the Callisto Protocol
and
play. Yeah, I was playing the Final Transmission DLC. I think that dropped at the beginning of July, if I remember correctly.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but my girlfriend got me the Callisto Protocol Collector's Edition in March with the statue in it, and it came with the DLC season pass or whatever. And so I had that downloaded and I was like, okay, it's time to go back and check it out. So I'm probably, I would estimate, maybe halfway through it. I don't know if anybody out there has played it or if you've played it, but I just unlocked the big hammer. So you lose your baton and then you're like, oh, my baton, what am I supposed to do now? And you find a huge hammer. So I've been playing through that, really good time. And then also the Halo Infinite Cyber Showdown 2 event is going on right now in Halo Infinite, and it is the best event to date. I am a huge fan of it.
Mm.
And I don't have enough good things to say about it. Just awesome free battle pass with tons of cool cosmetics, and you don't feel like anything is behind a paywall. But I'll admit, I bought one of the bundles in the store just because, like, hey, it looked cool. I spend so much time in Halo Infinite. I've got to
Mhm.
support this small business that, is
The
Microsoft.
small
So,
business, yeah, 343. I saw some rumors that maybe some PVE content was coming for
yeah.
multiplayer and Halo Infinite, which looked pretty intriguing, like a horror mode or horde mode, excuse me, King of the Hill and stuff like that. So it looked interesting, and I don't know anything about this Cyber Showdown event. Is it?
Oh,
It's
it's so cool.
it's number two they've had. Haven't they had one
Yeah,
of these
so
before?
Cyber Showdown 1 came out last year, and these are basically synthwave themed events. And so
Yeah,
all
I
the
think I did.
cosmetics.
I did Cyber Showdown one.
Yeah, so you unlock like the little blue visor
Mm-hmm.
thing and all
Yep.
the like the mohawk and things like that. So it's more of that. You've got like shoulder pads that you can buy, but the two things that I enjoy the most in the free battle pass are the charms. So there's a Halo Infinite pinball arcade machine from like the 80s that you can put on your gun, like a little keychain. And then there is a Halo Combat Evolved VHS tape that has like it's like a VHS box with the Combat Evolved box art on it. I'm a sucker for a good charm, man. I'll grind through a battle pass to unlock a charm for a gun. So I've been loving getting back into that.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're really knocking out some games in the survival horror and then Halo.
Yeah.
Like I said, Dead Space liked it. I liked it. It was good. I know my brother will be yelling at me after this podcast. Callisto. I'm never gonna play the DLC. I went and looked up what happened in the DLC though. So I really, as we talked about last week, wish that game could have got a sequel. Maybe it's still coming in the pipeline at some point, but wasn't as bad as everyone said. Speaking of not as bad as everyone said, Sam, good transition there. Atlas Fallen. Let me tell you, this game came out officially today, but if you went to New Zealand, you could play yesterday. So reviews dropped. I think it's sitting at like a 68 on Open Critic right now. Let me just double check that.
That's what it was
It
this
was
morning.
yeah, 68 this morning with 64 reviews. So it's kind of a mid, as people would say, type of game. But I've played almost 5 hours total of this game, full co-op, and I really am liking this game. I'm having an absolute blast with Atlas Fallen. I think I wouldn't play this game if it wasn't co-op. So that is my one caveat.
Hmm.
Like if I was, I would not pick this game up if you were a solo player. Like most of the fun I have is with the co-op experience, and like you can go and each do like your own, like you have one quest pool, but you can each go and do different quests, or you can meet up and beat up enemies together. And just the transversal and the combat is a lot of fun. I think the story and the voice acting is dreadful. Like it is
Mm.
bottom of the barrel. But everything else about the game, like the world and the combat, like I said, really good experience. So I'm having a great time with Atlas Fallen. This is exactly what I wanted it to be.
So whenever you talk about the co-op element and you say that you can go both or you both can go off and do whatever you want, is it full you can go wherever you want in the game, or are you tethered to the other person while you're playing co-op to some degree?
No, so you can, as long as you don't try to advance the main, like, because there will be main story points where you have to do it together because it'll be like a cut scene or something. But if you just both want to go do a side quest, like you can be at one edge of the map and I can be at the other, like you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want. There's no
Whatever.
like, oh, you're getting too far away. Like you can literally just go wherever you want.
Yeah, I know that we were talking about it. I think in the XEP Discord, there was some discussion around Atlas Fallen, and I said that this is either going to be like a 6 or a 7, or I could easily see this being a 9 or a 10 out of 10 because it visually, and I think this is what a lot of the reviews are saying, and you could probably agree with this or disagree, but it's a beautiful looking game, and it's one of those showcase games. But at the same time, there's that double A level of jank where it's like, oh, there's some issues here that probably could have been better.
Yeah, at parts, there's a lot of popping. That's one of the
Mm,
like for technical issues, I will say, there's a lot of popping. But if you can look past that, it's a very fun game. Like, and I forget who it was I was talking to, but they were put off by the aerial combat, and the aerial combat is some of the like I will go out of my way to fight in the air because I'll have this chain whip, and you can latch onto an enemy and pull yourself towards it, and it's just so awesome. It's exactly what I was looking for, and I'm having an absolute blast with it. Like, I'm not a big open world guy, but I'm co-op open worlds will the way to get me into it. I tell you what.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm glad that it's living up to your expectations, and I think that if Atlas Fallen had come out a year ago, we'd be having a different discussion, I think, right now,
Hmm.
because we're coming out in a year where there are so many good games that it makes the games that are like kind of mid seem less than mid. Not to
Hmm.
discredit what Atlas Fallen is and can be, but I mean, you're comparing it to a year that has Tears of the Kingdom, Diablo 4, and Baldur's Gate 3, all in a list of like 10. So yeah, it's hard to compete with that.
Yeah, I saw many comments like I'm not putting down Baldur's Gate for this. Like
Yeah.
this is a wait for sale. I've seen from a lot of people, which I think is completely fine. And I think the devs probably are more than okay with that kind of mindset. I got it because I had a gift card and was interested in like co-op. And right now, like I'm not in Baldur's Gate, so this is the perfect experience while I'm waiting for like Sea of Stars and Starfield.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're doing with Atlas Fallen what I'm doing right now with the DLCs. Like I've been playing Wolong, I've been playing these events in Halo Infinite, going back to Final Transmission. Summer has always been a DLC season for me, but you've got these AA games coming out, like Immortals of Avium would have been had it come
Hmm.
out in July. It's kind of it's the waiting room for the fall gaming season, is what I see these games as.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I also beat. I want to talk about this. I beat Trails in the Sky, mostly on the ROG Ally. My girlfriend was sick all weekend, so I had a lot of gaming time where I was like, all right, I had it put out in my calendar because I like to do this. I like to give myself little checkpoints where it's like have this chapter done by this, and that's how I like get through games.
Ah, okay.
And Trails in the Sky, I had penciled in like beat it before Starfield comes out, like one chapter a week. I beat this game in literally 1 week, like 30 something hours, because I was addicted and just playing it nonstop. I really love the story of Trails in the Sky, much like I do every Trails game. This was the first Trails game, and the difficulty is absolute nonsense. The absolute, I cannot get over who designed this game. It was like, this is a fair fight. It's it isn't. The final boss took me over 2 hours. He had constant one hit kill moves for like the whole party. The amount of times I had to click retry and like lower difficulty was absurd. It was not a fun experience for that combat, but the story made it worth it. I said I wasn't going to go into the second chapter. I've been playing it on my lunch break on the ROG Ally, so I'm like an hour into that one. That's going to be I'm gonna chip away at it. I'm not going to burn myself out on RPGs right now because we do have Sea of Stars and Starfield coming up. So great game. Just frustrated by the stupid difficulty.
And so
And
this is the
then
one that was in your PC library that you were like, "Yeah,
yes,
sure, I'll throw it on the." Okay, yeah,
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
jogging my memory now. Yeah, all right. Well, dang, you grinded through that one then.
Oh yes, I did. Yes, I did. The ROG Ally, man, it's getting me through. I was watching. I would just put on random shows and like sit there and I watched half of Secret Invasion one night while playing, and I was like,
Nice.
this is a good time.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
also tried out some other games on the ROG Ally. I was just looking for some like let's see what this thing can actually do. Handheld PC. So I tried out this game called Dead Link, which I got from friends over at oh what I can't level one gaming over there. They provided me a code for that a while ago, and I didn't really like it. It looked pretty good. It's a roguelite though, and I'm not a fan of that genre. So I tried out Wolfenstein: The New Order on the ROG
Okay. All
Ally.
right. All right.
Pretty impressed. I had it running at a 1080p 60, which I was like, wow, this is it's from 2014, so it's not like top of the line, but it's for a handheld gaming. I was like,
Yeah.
this is pretty good. I played a few hours and I was like, I don't really like Wolfenstein. I think it's not. I thought it would be more like Doom, where I'm just like shooting people, and I was like,
Right.
they're trying to give me a story here and like narrate. I don't really need that.
Yeah, I think that Wolfenstein is an interesting one because it does a lot of things well, but it's not that Doom style shooter that we kind of grew up on, or a lot of people grew up on. Even if you play like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, there's still a lot of running and gunning and it feels fast paced versus Wolfenstein, where it is more of kind of a typical campaign with like, killing Nazis in it and that kind of thing. I still love Wolfenstein and can't wait for another one, but yeah, that's interesting that it runs so well on the Ally. That's neat.
Hmm.
And then I was checking out Deadlink. I mean, it's got a cool vibe, like you said,
Yeah,
but
it does.
yeah, I just don't know. It's hard to tell gameplay from looking at a couple of screenshots on Steam. But
Hmm.
man, you're putting that the Ally through its paces. That's good to see. You got a good range of like 2004 RPG all the way up to like 2010s shooter. So cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to say, I also booted up KO the Kangaroo, which came out last year. It's a 3D platformer. Wasn't running the best on the ROG Ally. That was the first game where I wasn't very impressed. I was at like 720/30, and I don't know if it like needs more optimization to run better, like maybe some messing with the RAM or whatever. But I was
Right.
pretty disappointed because it can go like it has a 120 cap, but I couldn't get even 60. So that was a
Yeah.
little weird, especially because that game's not like a powerhouse.
Yeah, I would imagine the 120 is for games that are like either really old and or are like the basic like Thomas Was Alone,
Oh yeah,
stuff where
the
it's
the
just shapes. Yeah.
Trails in the Sky second chapter runs at 1080 120. I'm
Yeah, they like
like,
stuff like that. Yeah.
turn-based RPG. What do I need 120 for? But
Yeah, boot up a little Toem and you'll really get that 120 frames per second. I guarantee it.
clicking those pictures. But that's all I've been playing this week. Looking forward to playing some more Atlas Fallen and checking out some more ROG Ally stuff. But Sam, let's dive into the news because we have a good news week to talk about. First up, we got some new details about Avowed. So, new details regarding Obsidian's upcoming RPG Avowed have been revealed. As a part of the part 5 of the Obsidian 20th anniversary documentary, we were given the following insights into the game's development. Number one, Avowed had a co-op focus early in development. Studio head Fergus Urquhart said, quote, one of the things where I really pushed was that Avowed was going to be multiplayer, and I kept on that for a long time. And I think in the end, not I think, I know, in the end, it was the wrong decision to keep on pushing it. He explains that they were still independent at the time and thought multiplayer would make it a more interesting game to sell to publishers. Justin Britch, head of development, added that they changed it to focus on the things that they're best at. Obsidian also said they worked to find the right balance between taking things from the Pillars of Eternity universe and creating a new game that is more approachable. And they say they focus on unique, bespoke content, deep systems, and incredible storytelling that's focused on characters, societies, and factions, and is a natural extension of all the things they care about as a studio. So, Sam, I think the big one here is Avowed was originally co-op, but how are we feeling about these new Avowed details?
I think that it sounds like it's going to be better than it would have been had they not been acquired by Microsoft because they were trying to make it into a multiplayer game that in a time that multiplayer is becoming a bigger and bigger part, or at least it was a couple of years ago, becoming a bigger and bigger part of what publishers had wanted. Now they don't have to do that. They don't really have to cater. But, I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing. But looking at the devs of Redfall here, where sometimes you've got to do what you're good at. Like
Hmm.
if all of a sudden you and I started a cooking podcast, I don't know about you,
I
probably
can't
wouldn't,
cook.
yeah, probably wouldn't be too good of a show, but we're really good at talking about Xbox and we're really good at talking about games. So, yeah, I think that sticking to what you know and sticking to what you are passionate about as a studio versus trying to chase the trends. We see Ubisoft doing this a little bit today where they were just trying to go after Battle Royale. Let's make,
Hmm.
whatever competitor we can make. Now they are going back to we're focusing on Assassin's Creed, we're focusing on Rainbow Six, and we're going to do what we do well, really well. And I think that that is what Avowed's going to be. My question is any of that residual multiplayer going to be present and visible in the game where it's like, oh, like Gotham Knights, where I see what they were going to do here, but they
Four
never
player.
finished it. And yeah,
Yeah.
and then they pivoted. So like, is any of that going to be kind of lingering in the final version?
Yeah, I'm really excited for Avowed. I think Obsidian is kind of carrying this generation on their back for Xbox Game Studios in a lot of ways. I know TJI in the chat here says co-op sounds good, but fair enough. One thing they need to do with Avowed is step up the graphics. That game doesn't look so pretty, and I wanted to point that out because I got to say, if you think Obsidian is going to make a visually stunning game, that's the wrong studio to go for. That is not their bread and butter. They're not the high fidelity, like a Ninja Theory or something like a Naughty Dog over a PlayStation. Like that is not what Avowed goes for. They are all about the storytelling, the building, the gameplay is going to shine here. And from what we've seen from Avowed, I'm excited. I think it looks like a good RPG. We know it's not quite the scale that everyone originally thought, like a Skyrim-esque. It's more of a scaled back thing, kind of like the Outer Worlds was. But to your point, Sam, as you said, are we going to see the residuals of co-op being left over? I know a lot of people after the reveal trailer at the Xbox Showcase thought the game was multiplayer because there's a bunch of trailer moments where you see your party with you, where you see other characters rolling with you, and everyone was like, "Oh, this has maybe has some co-op element, maybe it does have multiplayer." And I think that is kind of already being shown. Like maybe they took that and it was like, instead of co-op, what if we just have a party to flesh out the world more? They kind of pivoted and as they said, redirected their approach from, we could have a different player be this person, or we can use it to just flesh things out a little more.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that what I'm excited about is the fact that it is going to be a single player experience. As somebody who plays a ton of single player games, like
Hmm.
I primarily play solo, I don't really play games with many other people. So I think that it sounds like it was early enough. This pivot was early enough that a lot of the game came together after they chose this different direction. And so I think it's going to be less trying to shove a round peg into a square hole and more of, this is just the game that we chose to make. Turns out it was originally going to be a multiplayer game. It's kind of like Fortnite, where it was going to be like a base defense game, and then they turned it into this battle royale craze. Like it's a pivot, and you can't really tell that it was that much of a pivot at the end of the day when you look at it at like a grand scale. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's going to be good.
Yeah. So one thing that I thought was interesting here was that he talked about like the need to pitch it to publishers, and multiplayer being the more appealing thing to publishers. And this was when they were independent. And I know Lord Cognito always talks about this, but like he's always in favor of these acquisitions because it lets the developers make the games they want to make. And it sounds like this is the case for Avowed. But as you were saying, we gotta then look at the other studios and we're like, why wasn't Arcane given the same sort of, all right, guys, like let's let you do what you want here, because we know they're not the only ones that have made a multiplayer game for Game Pass or tried to look more appealing in the mainstream. If you look at a game like Nobody Saves the World, which I love from last year, that's over at Drinkbox. Microsoft went to them when they made the Game Pass deal, and they were there on record saying this, and they're like, they asked for co-op to be in the game. They're like, can you make it a multiplayer experience? So in some way, Microsoft still finds value in that multiplayer and co-op experience, especially for Game Pass.
Yeah, I think that Redfall's a different situation. I was reading Jason Schreier's article on it, I think, whenever he did like his big expose on the post-mortem of Redfall. And I think that it depends on where the control is coming from. Like Microsoft recommending a co-op mode in a game, I think is okay, as long as if the devs say no, they're like, all right, figured we'd ask. You know, it's like you gotta shoot your shot just to see if you can get something that fits in the Game Pass rhythm. But with Redfall, it sounds like the holdup was at the studio management level, where it was a middle manager, if you want to put it that way, that wasn't from Xbox, but it was at Arcane, where they said this is the direction the studio is going. And so, you know, it's not necessarily something you can blame Microsoft for or directly, you know, tie it back to Xbox in any way. But then that brings up the other conversation of like, Bethesda is owned by Microsoft now. How much oversight and meddling should Microsoft have in these operations? Because
Hmm.
arguably, if Matt Booty or somebody else was brought in to look at Redfall on a deeper level, they probably would have said, "Whoa, this looks like hot garbage." So you know, there's a lot of intricacies with that when you're trying to figure out who's responsible.
Yeah, we know Xbox and studios have said this, that they have a really hands-off approach for a lot of their developers, and it'll be interesting to see when Activision Blizzard gets acquired, because I know a lot of people have this the pie in the sky dream of like studios being freed from the Call of Duty machine, and we've kind of discussed that in the past how we don't think that's really going to happen. Um, Obsidian kind of seems to be able to do what they want, and I don't know if it's because they've earned goodwill or it's some other factor that Microsoft has just kind of been like, you guys can make the games you want to make. We're just going to pay for it. I would like to see that extended to all studios.
Yeah, and I think that there's a healthy level of it's almost like parenting in a way. Not that I'm a parent, not that I have a child, but like looking at how my parents raised me, there was a comfortable level of hands off with it where you intervene whenever you start doing something a little off. Like if
Hmm.
I'm running off and like getting drunk in the middle of the night, parents are like, hey, you shouldn't do that. But if I'm just out there like having a good time, a little bit home, a little bit late, doing my own thing, parents are like, oh, whatever. So Microsoft should implement the same thing where if all of a sudden 343 is like, hey, we want to make a chess game. They're like, well, I don't know about that. How about you stick to Halo? Like I think there's got to be a comfortable level of firmness with it, but also like you said, giving people the leeway to do what they really want if it was multiplayer versus single player or something on that same kind of level.
TGI in the chat says, no, they can't all make what they want. LOL. These studios are bought for a reason. Xbox needs to be able to step in and keep some of these games in check. I I agree to a certain extent, creatively and like story wise, and I just I don't know. I worry about Microsoft kind of looking at games as a business decisions instead of creativity, which is I never want anyone to be stifled creatively. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
I and I think I totally agree with that, and I think that the perfect example of them doing that is Obsidian, where I think that being acquired by Microsoft gives them additional resources that they can scale up and say, "Hey, you're going to be working on Avowed, but I heard you guys wanted to make Pentiment, so we're going to throw Pentiment your
Hmm.
way, and you can do your own thing." I don't know if Pentiment was a financial success by any means,
I
but
can't
it was
imagine it was.
yeah, but it was clearly something that they wanted to make and that they had a passion for. And so I think that's great where if 343 did want to make that chess game, as long as they're still killing it with Halo, then go make it. Sure, whatever. Run wild with it. I think that there's a good balance there.
Can you just imagine the Xbox showcase trailer for a chess game from 343?
Okay,
That would
listen,
be
I'm
amazing.
going to be real with you. The more that I'm talking about this, the more that I like the idea of like a Banished versus UNSC Halo
It's like
board.
Halo Wars, but chess.
Like I think like the big Harry Potter statue scene from Sorcerer's Stone, but with like Arbiter versus
Yes.
Chief. All right, we're getting there. We're workshopping this a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Send
I'm
us the blank check, Microsoft. We'll fill it out for you and take it to the bank.
I'm excited for Avowed. I think the studio knows what to do, and we'll see it next year. Just curious, Sam, where you fall? Is Avowed early 2024 or late 2024?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say my gut says like May, but I could
Mm.
easily see it being a late 2024. I guess it kind of all depends on the way the rest of the calendar falls. Like, does Hellblade have a definitive date yet?
No, 2024.
So, like, I could see Hellblade being the spring game and then Avowed being the fall game because but while they're different, they're similar in vibe. Like, it's a dark, gritty kind of like sci-fi fantasy situation, I guess. I don't
I think
know.
it's going to be the opposite.
You think so?
I
Yeah.
think Avowed hits first and Hellblade hits later, which
I
is
think,
sad for me
yeah.
because I'm more excited for Hellblade. But
Yeah, I think I'm more excited for Hellblade. I think that it's also Hellblade. Both of these games, in the grand scheme of things, are still niche in a lot of ways. Like, it's not going to be
mhm.
setting the world on fire like having a new Call of Duty or a new God of War coming out. So I think the Hellblade right now is probably the bigger IP for them to put out. But yeah, either way, I'm cool with it.
Thrack in the chat is with us. Says Halo chess would be
All
fire.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Let's go, guys. All right, we got everyone on board. Let's go into story number 2, though, is a new Xbox Series X in development. This rumor comes via Nick over at Xbox Era. According to Nick, Microsoft is currently planning to release a digital-only version of the Series X. Nick also states Microsoft is planning for more Xbox hardware in 2025, but did not elaborate further. So, Sam, an all-digital Xbox Series X is something you'd be interested in.
No, it just isn't. I don't see a need for this, and I think that right now we are just getting to the point where the consoles are kind of coming out at a steady clip, where you have a steady stream of Series X's and Series S's, and I think that the more complex you make the console lineup, the harder you make it for grandma to buy a console at Christmas time, because ultimately that's my example of like who you're trying to sell consoles to. Like, how is Grandma Marianne going to be in Target where she's like, all right, so you can get the Series S digital, you can get the Series X with the disk drive, or you can get the Series X with no disk drive, but it's the same as the X, but it's also kind of like the S. And she's like, I don't know, I'm gonna get a
Also, you can
PS5.
get the S Black with more storage.
Yes. And then she's like, what's a terabit? And then you've got to explain that. So I don't see the need for this. I don't know if Microsoft would do a digital Series X, because I think that's kind of like one of the selling points is you got the big one with a disk drive, the small one without. I think it just makes sense that way.
Yeah, if they had offered this at launch, I would have gotten it because I don't care about disc drives. Like I have the all digital PS5. Yeah, I know.
Me
Shooting.
looking at my big shelf of games right here.
Would this digital X be white, man? I would love if it was, because I think white consoles look so much better than
Oh yeah.
the black consoles. But for me, I'm having a hard time believing this rumor, mainly because I do think it is a lot of not only confusion, but it goes into we like to have two options. And if you have a digital Series X, that's let's say $100 cheaper to match the digital PS5, right? That's only $100 more than the Series S at that point, right? Like 300 versus 400. So why not just get the Series? You would basically cannibalize the Series S at that point and make it irrelevant. Like, why even bother having it?
Yeah, and I think that another option there is like if they wanted to reevaluate the entire line of Xbox consoles, they could follow in what PlayStation is rumored to be doing, where you have one digital console and then you sell an attachment or an external disk drive or whatever for the people that did want the physical option. But we've still yet to see that from PlayStation, if that is in fact going to be happening at all. I mean, we're looking at middle of August is rearing its head right now. I can't imagine a holiday release for a new model of the PlayStation 5
Mhm.
without like it just doesn't make any sense. So all of that conversation to the side, I just don't see I don't see this happening. It's hard to believe it.
Thrack in the chat says Nick typically gets good info, but this could be 2025 to compete with future PS5 revisions, or they get rid of the Series S. Well, there's no reality where they get rid of the Series S, because they build it as like, if you get this console, it is a next gen console. We're going to support this through the lifespan of the current gen we're currently in. So getting rid of the Series S isn't an option. You would get rid of the majority of your current gen player base.
Yeah, I think a pro Xbox Series X, like if they whatever the name is going to be for that, I think that if you're looking at 2025, 2026, maybe you could see like a console revision, but we talked about this last week where Phil Spencer said recently the X is the pro model. Like the S is what they consider to be the entry level of the generation, and then the X is your elite next level experience that packs that extra punch. So we'll see, but I think right now they're just getting to the point where they're caught up on production in general to where you can just buy one when you want one.
Yeah, the only reason I think digital consoles for Xbox really makes sense is we see they're not really selling physical anymore. Like if you go off, I know they don't report that in the US for MPD or whatever, but I always see those stats like 80% of physical sales in the UK are on PlayStation, right? And it's like Xbox doesn't really seem to have a foothold in that market at the current moment. We know some of their games like don't even like Hi-Fi Rush doesn't even have a physical, right? So they are kind of pushing people more towards like all digital, and Game Pass is obviously all digital, and that's kind of where they want people to go. So in that regard, I get why they would want a digital console. I just don't think we see it this generation. Like we're already in the middle of it. I don't really think it makes sense to make the Series X digital at this point.
Yeah, and I wonder what the reaction is going to be whenever it does eventually happen, because it's coming where we do have, like, I mean, we're seeing it now with the PS5 digital and the Series S, where what happens when they announce a generation that really doesn't have a disk drive? I mean, obviously, you're going to have your physical guys like me that are like, I can't play my backwards compatible games anymore. That really sucks. But also, is it going to be kind of like the iPhone headphone jack, where for a year, everybody was like, God, my headphone jack is gone. Now I don't even think about it. I just do what I need to do, and it's a non-issue. So
Mhm.
it'll be an interesting day when they eventually do say, whoever the competitor is, hey, can't put a disc in here anymore.
I think we are at least 10 plus years away from not having physical, like the internet infrastructure in the United States just does not allow that, like data caps, and people would not be able to play games in a lot of the regions. So I think Thrack in the chat, could this be last gen with disk drives? Maybe disk drives that are like the standard, you might have to buy a disk drive, which is kind of what like the rumor Sony is doing, where it's a digital console, pay us $50 or $100 or whatever, and get a disk drive you plug in. Like I can see that becoming the norm. Very like next gen doesn't seem too far
Yeah.
fetched for that.
Yeah, I think you could totally do it. And if they do it the right way, you could make it to where it is something that like plugs in almost like the external expansion cards that they have now, to where it's just an attachment you put on your console. I don't know what that looks like functionally.
Oh, it'd be so ugly.
Well, I mean, I'm just imagining like the Series X, but you put like a little hat on it, and then it opens up, and you can put like your disc in the top, whatever you want to call it. But like you could do stuff like that. So I'll be physical till the day that it's gone, personally, just because I enjoy being able to like hold up a disc while I'm talking about it on a video, or just feeling that kind of stuff. But it's already dwindling. I mean, like Call of Duty games are basically keys on a disc at this point. There's not really any data there. It's just a token of nostalgia for a lot of people.
We need discs that hold 500 gigabytes is really
it is really what we need to do. Yeah. And then physical games will be $120. So
you wanted this. All right, Sam, let's keep rolling. This one I included. People may be like, this isn't really Xbox related. I disagree. All right. I think this is very Xbox related and highlights an important Xbox feature. So Red Dead Redemption non-remaster is what I've titled this in the notes. Here it says controversy. So Rockstar and Take-Two have announced that Red Dead Redemption is coming to PlayStation 4 and Switch on August 17th. However, this is not the rumored remastered version we've heard about for weeks. Instead, it's just a port to those two platforms. You may wonder why Xbox is not included, and the reason for that is very simple. Red Dead Redemption is already playable on Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S via backwards compatibility. And if you play it on the Series X, you get 4K resolution. Sam,
it's crazy, man.
How are you feeling about Red Dead Redemption?
So with me looking at this Red Dead news, number one, I talked about this on my channel. I had made videos on it where I literally think I said in a podcast, why would you update the logo if you don't intend to do anything significant with this game? Lo and behold, they literally just are having the game ported to PlayStation. I think the Switch is cool. I think that's neat that Switch players are going to be able to play it and it's getting a physical release. Like that makes sense. Cool with that. But the fact that it's not improved in any significant way, like it doesn't even run at 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5. That is just almost like a slap in the face. And then you're like, hey, how much should we charge for this? How about 50? And they're like, what? $50? That's insane. But the backwards compatibility program on Xbox continues to provide value. And in moments like this, I tweeted about it. It literally negated the need for Rockstar to release a game on this platform. I'll be interested to see if they print more of that Xbox One physical version of Red Dead that includes Undead Nightmare on the disc, because they have that bundle out there. I saw Captain Logan from XEP post a picture of his copy that he got from GameStop or whatever. But yeah, just almost offensive with this release at this point.
So I was never in favor, like a remaster I could have understood. Like, okay, especially it is a 360 game. Okay, it's been long enough. All right, we got The Last of Us getting remastered every 3 years at this point. So understand Red Dead might want to come back, especially because it is one of the most like beloved games of all time. It's not a game I personally have any fond feelings for. I'm not a Rockstar guy, but the fact that they came out and was like, you know what? This isn't a remaster at all. I know the rumors. It's just a port. Nothing's going to change. It's not even Rockstar developing it. I don't even know the studio. Coming off the awful GTA trilogy remaster that they did, right? You think they would have been looking for some goodwill, some brownie points to earn them back some favor. Instead, they're like, port $50. Thank you very much. I have no idea what Take-Two and Rockstar are thinking with this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Again, Switch, cool, go get it. But for PlayStation, you guys are getting slapped in the face with this release.
It's pretty bad. And I do think that I have more faith in the Red Dead Redemption port than I do the GTA trilogy, because looking it up, so the trilogy definitive edition was by War Drum Studios. And so this is going to be made by Double 11, that was founded by former Rockstar developers. So it sounds like it's like they got some old friends back at the studio. They started partnering up. Maybe it's some people that worked on Red Dead. I don't know. I think it's going to be a 1-to-1 recreation, but I'm looking forward to the Digital Foundry comparison of like, here's the Switch version compared to the new PS4 version, compared to the PS3 version, compared to the Xbox 360 running on Series X version. Like,
Not even a PS5 version. Like,
nah, nothing,
why? Why?
nothing. I mean, literally, just if you're going to go to the trouble of porting it, don't improve the graphics, do nothing with it. Just make it 60 frames per second, and people would have bought it. People would have
Mhm.
gone out and been much more willing to buy this on PlayStation 5, especially. But
Yes.
I think we've overlooked a big part of this conversation. The poor PC fans out there that have been waiting for 13 years to play Red Dead Redemption. The Switch is the version that's coming out. The PS4 is getting the port. Even just bringing the basic game to PC, letting people mod it to where it can run at 60 frames per second. Just a mind-boggling drop of the ball on this one. It's just crazy to see.
Uh, Shout out Xbox backwards compatibility program, saving people money. I think you can get that what you were talking about, Sam, the bundle with Red Dead and then Undead Nightmare. I think it's like $30.
Yeah,
So
it's been as low as like 10 before. Like you, especially on Black Friday. I think I've seen that in the Walmart ad like 5 times at this point, where it's $10. You can go pick it up. So if you're going to any gaming conventions or small town gaming stores, you can find copies of Red Dead for like 10-15 bucks, no problem.
so you can get a better version of the game for cheaper
Yep,
on Xbox.
100%.
Seems fair. It doesn't seem like they're screwing their PlayStation fans at all.
No, not at all.
All right, Sam, let's go to some listener questions to round out the show. So, question number one comes from It's Kyle. He says, do you think Xbox should just fully commit to PC mobile integration? I would love to play all my games on my ROG Ally, but only a select few are play anywhere. Why not make that the standard and be able to access my whole library?
I mean, yeah, I think that this is something they should absolutely get into. And I think the clarification, PC to mobile, I would assume that's just, is that stream? Well, what's the intent there? Like PC to streaming, or how's that work? But like
Hmm.
in general, the Xbox Play Anywhere program, I would love to see it to where I can play all of my Xbox games on my PC in the same way that I'm going to be able to play Starfield no matter what, and also play everything on cloud gaming. Like this unanimous trifecta of where I can play my Xbox games. It would be cool to have this just digital access library. But I think what you run into is with examples from third parties, like we've been talking about Rockstar, where if you do have Red Dead Redemption on your Xbox, that's a bad example, GTA on your Xbox, you have to go through them and say, hey, if somebody has this on your Xbox, can they play it on PC? And they're going to be like, nah, I want them to buy it 7 times everywhere they want to play it. I think you'll probably end up seeing it more and more with first party games, Starfield being a really good example of that. But yeah, I would love to see it and see them access the whole library.
Yeah, I think this question is a little I understand the intent. So Xbox has fully committed. Like their first party games are play anywhere. Like that is an initiative that they've set in place. So you can play all first party games you own or on Game Pass on any device that supports that, like the ROG Ally. Third party is where we get into some issues, and it's really interesting the games that like are third party play anywhere, where like I have things like Scarlet Nexus from Bandai Namco, but I don't have Tales of Arise, which came out like months apart. I have Yakuza Like a Dragon and Like a Dragon Ishin, but I don't have other Sega titles on there that I own. Like it's just a very strange thing. I know a lot of indies do get that play anywhere moniker. Like there's a full list you can look on true achievements. It isn't that many, especially when you're like, oh, what are the notable games? There's one Final Fantasy game on there. I think it's 9, which is like, okay, why is 9 on there and none of the other Final Fantasy games on Play Anywhere? So it's this really weird program that I think a lot of people kind of forget about. And I feel like Xbox has kind of forgotten about it for their partners, not for themselves, but trying to get that for other people. It seems very not at the top of their mind.
Yeah. I also wonder what it's like in the negotiations whenever they're talking to third parties. Like, is it like when I'm checking out a GameStop and they try to sell me a credit card where they're like, hey, that Final Fantasy game,
Mhm.
glad to have 16 coming to Xbox. Would you want to put it on Play Anywhere today and save 20%? And you're like, nah, I'm good. Next time, next time. And then they just keep on rolling with it. So I don't know who's responsible for making it not happen, but something out there definitely is.
Yeah, I imagine Xbox has to pay them because why would they give up like, oh, we can sell it twice or we can just like
Yeah, that does
companies are
make
going to want
sense.
the more money. So I assume Xbox has to give some sort of financial incentive for them to enter the Play Anywhere program because they are losing potential PC sales if they do that.
Yeah, and how many people are really like, I know we would. We'll like, take advantage of the Play Anywhere, but what percentage of the players will actually use the Play Anywhere? Is it worth the extra 50K or whatever to get 17 people or however many end
Mhm.
up playing some of these games on Anywhere?
I'm hoping with I'm hoping with the rise of PC handhelds like the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally. We know Lenovo might be making one as well. I'm hoping we kind of see them be like, oh, this is like something we can capitalize on. Like make these like the ROG Ally is very much like I've called the Xbox handheld, and I kind of feel like it is an Xbox handheld for a lot of ways because like I don't think Xbox needs a handheld when you have this running around. This does everything that you would want that to do. So
Yeah,
let's hope they double down and kind of commit to that a little more. But I'm not holding my breath on it.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Thrack says, "Do you think GTA Online has tainted Rockstar? They used to be one of the best devs around. Also, you guys should play Lost Odyssey if you haven't."
I have not played Lost Odyssey, but I will add it to the ongoing list of hundreds of games that I need to get back to. I don't necessarily think the GTA Online has tainted Rockstar, but at the same time, I do think that the success of GTA Online over time and subsequently through the years, the lack of like really hardy, meaty content coming into the game without the degradation of how much money is coming into it. Like they put out less content and continue to drive tons of revenue. So maybe seeing that is kind of like the Call of Duty effect where we've got Modern Warfare 3 coming out. It's effectively a big expansion for Modern Warfare 2. And they're like, hey, give me $70 on November the 10th, and everybody's going to go do it. And I think GTA Online's probably in that same regard where once the next GTA comes out, online, I'm sure, is either going to get some kind of big port, big upgrade, engine upgrade, something like that. Online too, maybe. I don't know. But they'll definitely be focused on like, how can we make the most money out of this versus exclusively thinking, what are the cool stories and characters we can show off in the new Grand Theft Auto? So I think it definitely has an impact on their perception of what their games are.
GTA Online is an enigma to me because I own GTA 5. I've played some of it. I've played some of GTA Online and I just never understood the appeal. And then I see the sales and I think it just hit 185 million copies
Yep.
sold or something. People got to be buying this game multiple times. First of all, like, there's no way. There's the rumored like install base for like console players or whatever that Phil Spencer started about is like 300 million, and it's kind of been that way for years. So you're telling me like 2/3 of everyone that owns a console owns GTA 5? That is insane.
Yeah, I don't know what the split is like on it, but I mean, I think about the generic like dude coming home from work at the end of the day, and these are your like Call of Duty, Madden, NBA 2K players. Like, if you just want an open world sandbox to where you can go steal somebody's Corvette, launch it off of a cliff, pull a hang glider, and then just like do whatever you want in GTA Online, it's the perfect open world sandbox to where you don't have to think about anything. You do whatever you want, and you've got like heist and things in there if you want to. But the general appeal of Grand Theft Auto and that name recognition, I think, just continues to propel it. But I agree with you with GTA Online and GTA 5 in general. Like, it's cool. I get it. I'm not the guy that keeps coming back to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's made Rockstar and Take Two kind of be like, we don't really need to put out games as often. Like they used to put out games all the time, like every
Yeah.
2 years, and now it's like, yeah, how many generations has it been? Two? Maybe next time. We got you. We got you in the third generation.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, if you look at like Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, how big of a graphical leap were those games between each other? I mean, on the flip side, to play devil's advocate, if we did get a new GTA every 2 years, would we be on this podcast complaining about how the last GTA wasn't any different than the other GTA.
Probably.
Like
Yeah, we do
I'm
with
hoping
Call of
that
Duty.
yeah, like I'm hoping that the next big GTA that comes out is like a graphical visual leap. It's got more complex systems in it within reason, like things that are measurable improvements versus just it's another GTA in a Miami this time or whatever.
Yeah, no, I understand. I agree. GTA is something I will never understand, but it sells gangbusters. So let's keep it rolling. Terabo asks tons of questions here. I don't. We'll go through them. I don't know. We might have answered some of these already, but one now that Baldur's Gate 3 is out, 94 on Metacritic. I think it's a 97 now. Actually, Game of the Year contender. How much of an L is this for Xbox on a scale of 1 to 10?
Uh, I'm gonna give it a 7. I would give it a 7
Mm,
to an 8 because I think that I'm also speaking as somebody who respects Baldur's Gate 3. I will never play
same,
this. I will
same.
never buy it. I don't care. It's just not my thing. Now, my girlfriend, or actually my fiance now, in the other room, she's all over Baldur's Gate 3. She wants it. She's like, I need it. And I'm like, bad news, babe, not on Xbox. And so just devastated. So I see both sides of it. But I would say it's an 8 just missing out on that hype level right there. But also when it eventually does get running, it's almost like Stray. I'm looking at my other monitor where Stray is out right now on Xbox. It's kind of like a second wave where it's going to bring more attention to all versions of Baldur's Gate once it eventually hits Xbox. So it's a temporary L that will eventually turn into a, oh yeah, forgot it wasn't on Xbox for 6 months kind of situation.
Yeah, I think it's I'm gonna go with a 6 just because I think Baldur's Gate right now is like the hot item, but are we really gonna care when Starfield comes out? Like, I think the Xbox community will be fine. I understand this is like a big game that we're missing out on for a few months, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm gonna go with a 6. I obviously would have been better to have it day one, or at least same day PlayStation is getting it, which is the same day Starfield comes out. So I don't know about that, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I also completely underestimated Baldur's Gate. I swear to God, I never heard anyone talk about Baldur's Gate before Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and now nobody will stop talking about it. And I even had a comment on Reddit get tagged as aged like milk, or aged like milk, because I said Final Fantasy 16 will be a bigger game than Baldur's Gate 3, which is a niche title. Yeah, I look like a moron.
I mean, I didn't think it was as big as it is now. You know, I was in the same boat as you, but does the PS5 version of Baldur's Gate 3 really come out on the same day as Starfield?
Yeah, September 6th, I believe.
I didn't realize that. In that case, I think that the fact that it's not coming to Xbox kind of a win, honestly, for like the marketing team behind Baldur's Gate Alarian, where they're like, we got out of the way of Starfield. Like it sucks right now for the Xbox players in this little in between time. But if you were to get Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield on the same day, not to say they cannibalize each other, but like, how does Xbox market that on Twitter when they're like, hey, Starfield's out now? By the way, Baldur's Gate 3. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
One's on Game Pass, one you got to buy.
yeah, like I think that this will probably end up being better for Larian in the long run if it comes out in like January, whenever there's a dry spell. I think it's probably going to be a good thing.
And Xbox should, if I've seen people, people say this all the time, you should get a better version because they'll be able to fix all the bugs and tweaks and everything. So
Maybe we'll see how well it runs. If they're trying to make concessions for the Xbox Series X and S, if that thing runs a little rough just to get it out the door, kind of nervous about that. But I doubt they would do that. So.
his second question, Starfield is launching and we all know it will sell extremely well. Do you think Xbox needs to go harder in the marketing department to announce to the world we're back? A few of my casual friends haven't really seen or heard much about Starfield. I think we kind of touched on the marketing last week for
Mhm.
Starfield. And I will say, I've seen more Starfield marketing this week. Like I've seen ads for Starfield this week.
I haven't seen any ads myself, but I also haven't been on like social media a lot. Still off Twitter, just not feeling being over there in that chaos right now. But I do think that I'm ready to see more. I hope that I see more in the next couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that that hype machine starts rolling. Uh, Again, do they need to market it beyond the core gaming audience? Like, how many casual players are going to be like, Starfield's the game I want to pick up right now? I think that they probably need to dial in on who that audience is because they've got people like us that are in the podcasting community. But do you have, homeboy in GameStop that's looking at stuff in the clearance rack that looks up at the GameStop monitor and he's like, oh, okay. So like that's how you you got to figure out who you're talking to. But hoping to see more of it in the next couple of weeks. I'm definitely surprised if we don't.
I think Premier League is starting tomorrow. I think the NFL season, preseason season will be starting soon. So I expect to see some ads, right?
Yeah, football starts. Actually, it started last Thursday, but there are games on tonight, so I would not be shocked to see. I also don't have cable, so I guess I'm living on an island now. I don't know.
Well, I've heard NFL Sunday Ticket is now exclusively on YouTube TV. So
I believe it is, and it's also still like $120. So don't think I'm going to be doing
I
that.
think that's a little cheap. Actually, I think it's like $300 something.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy. It's
Shout out to
crazy.
my parents' NFL login with their cable that I use. So
Yeah. Number 3, as it stands now, PS5 to Xbox Series X is 2-1 roughly. Did you expect this to be the case this generation at any point in time? How do you think it will play out numbers wise by the end of this generation?
I mean, I think that this is probably what I expected personally going into the generation because you're coming off of a console with the PlayStation 4 that earned so much mind share and won over so many players from start to finish that whenever people are going into Target or GameStop or Walmart picking out their console, they're going to go with what they're comfortable with. And, to your point about, or to the point about backwards compatibility with the new Nintendo Switch that will eventually come out that's been confirmed to kind of be in development. They've got to have that digital library built up. And a lot of people built that on the PlayStation 4. And so you bring over hundreds of games from the console you had. It does make the most sense to go with the PS5. So I think 2-1 roughly, kind of a good point to be in right now because that's better than the Xbox One generation.
Mhm.
You've had like horrible ratios with that. So I think this is a really good comeback. And I think that you'll continue to see that kind of shift as we get more games out. I think we talked last week about I had a wild prediction about how we are going to catch up to where they'll be neck and neck by the end of the generation if the games hit. It all
Mhm.
depends on the games.
I exactly what you just said. I don't know if we'll catch up, but it will be a lot closer.
Mhm.
If every game, if Avowed, Fable, Hellblade 2, the Outer Worlds, like if all these games start coming out and high 80s, 90s, like then we're gonna catch up because
Yeah.
people will be unable to ignore
Yeah. When
the
the
fact that
Redfall 60 FPS patch hits,
when
it's over. It's over.
say your prayers, PlayStation, Redfall 60 FPS is coming to town.
Spider-Man who? Never heard of him. Redfall 60 FPS is back. It's
Oh
over.
my god. Yeah, the AI doesn't know you're standing there when you're in front of them, but it's time to take PlayStation down.
Oh god.
All right. Fourth question. PS5 now is 4K streaming. Why does Xbox not have any? I assume you mean 4K streaming because
Yeah.
Xbox has streaming.
Yeah. So I was hoping this conversation would come up. I personally feel, just based on like the way that the last couple of weeks has gone, between the longer loading times on cloud gaming and the lack of this 4K support, which does seem like something Microsoft would have by now because they have the partnership with Samsung where cloud gaming is on TVs. I'm perceiving like they're backing away a little bit off of cloud gaming and saying this might not be as big of a part of the future of our strategy as we think
Mhm.
that it is. And you could even go all the way back to Project Keystone, where the streaming dongle stick device, the little small baby console, nowhere to be found. And Phil Spencer's like, we didn't get it down to the price point that we wanted for it to release. So I'm kind of seeing a back off of cloud gaming to where Sony's doubling down on it, kind of following the leader in the space, if you will, where they're like, hey, we beat him to the punch and got 4K. You beat him to the punch for what? How many people are really playing cloud gaming? We've seen commentary from the hearings as well, where they're just like, it's not as big as people think that it is, and we're kind of like breaking even, maybe making a little bit of money on it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up was we saw during the Activision Blizzard the FTC case, right, where they were like, this is a part of the market. It hasn't kind of blossomed into the full blown like it's its own thing that we expected it to. So right now, like, does it make sense for Xbox to push into 4K when there's other initiatives like growing consoles, growing Game Pass, getting games out? I'm kind of okay with cloud staying at a lower 1080p resolution if that gives you a better experience as well. Like I don't know I haven't done the 4K streaming on PlayStation. I'm not in the beta. I've done normal streaming on PlayStation through I had PS Now when it was PS Now, and I played the entirety of the Sly Cooper quadrilogy on PS Now, and then I played I think I think I played a Ratchet game on PS Now as well, and it worked fine enough. It was like it was 720p. There weren't many hitches. Like, it was okay. And then when they transitioned to PlayStation Plus Premium, where the streaming is now locked behind, the streaming got so much worse. Like, it basically unplayable. I tried to play Heavenly Sword, and it was unplayable for me. And it's like like my internet's probably better now. Actually, I have higher speeds, so I know they recently redid their whole data centers and they're expanding it. So, like,
Mm,
PlayStation is making a move into the cloud, which is why I think they're going for the 4K. I don't really know if it matters all that much. Like, I personally don't care 4K, 1080. Like, either one is fine with me, especially if you're a cloud gamer. Like, is that where you're going to draw the line? Resolution, really?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
of all things?
I think that for me, like whenever I see the 4K gaming idea thrown around, anytime I'm playing anything in 4K, it's in the living room on the big screen with the HDR, TV's off, headphones on. Like, it's the full cinematic experience if you want to go with that. And I just can't imagine a point. Like, obviously, you can test games out without having to download them and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're somebody like me who's like dedicated to a game when I boot it up and I'm not just jumping around testing stuff most of the time, why would I choose the cloud gaming version over downloading everything with all of the data that isn't going to be at risk of like dropping frames or bitrate all of a sudden going from 4K to 160p? Like, I just don't know the use case for this beyond bouncing around in PlayStation Plus trying to find your next game.
Tom says Sony's still using Azure for their cloud services, right?
I
I
think
don't
so.
I thought they were. I don't honestly know. All I saw was the story about I think they called it Project Kronos or whatever was their new data center initiative. I don't know if they're still using that or if they've transitioned away from it. Some maybe No Limits can talk about that this weekend when they record. Go over there and ask them, Tom. But yeah, I really don't care all that much about cloud streaming. I know it's a very small use case, and I'm sure Xbox will get 4K at some point. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of time.
I mean, I think it'll come, but again, at what point do they say, it's good enough for the audience that we've got? Not to say they shouldn't continue to nurture it, but like, is it going to be a focus for them in 5 years? Probably. To what degree? TBD.
Mhm. Last question I think we've answered before, but it says which Xbox first party game? Oh, do you think it's going to surprise everyone from their new studios?
Ooh, surprise everyone. I think that Clockwork Revolution, I
I
think
was
is
gonna
what it's
say that
called.
one. I was gonna
Yeah, I
say
think
that.
that one it has the potential to be like a really cool time shift BioShock combination, and I think that could be really neat. So it's probably my pick right there.
I think that is the answer because like people expect a lot from Hellblade too, right? Like that
Yeah.
is Avowed has some hype. Like Clockwork Revolution, I think came out of nowhere and does have the ability to, if it delivers, to take people by surprise, just like the trailer did. So that was my answer as well. But
Yeah, definitely.
Sam, that is all we have for this week. Thanks for rocking with me another week down. You want to let people know where they can find you over on the socials?
For sure. You can find me at JamPackSam on all of the various social media platforms. YouTube's popping off. We hit 14,000 subs
Ooh.
this week over on YouTube. So excited about that. And we keep on rolling on the content train, put out some good stuff this week, and we got more on the way. But yeah, TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. You can find me over there. Threads as well. Got to pimp the threads because I'm still over there rocking that.
Mm.
Being the gaming news guy over there. So looking forward to seeing you, some of you guys over there.
You can find me in the Discord. Come join the Discord. Links down below. You can also find me still rocking over on X. All right, X
Ah,
gonna give it to you. Okay, at the Muffin Mon. It's a 1-7I and 0-7A. Follow us at Save Game Media over on X. Can we just call it Twitter? Like,
I've been calling it Twitter.
all
Yeah.
right. We're on Twitter. All right.
Yeah.
Go or find us on Twitter. Make sure to get the entries in for the Starfield and Spider-Man 2 giveaways. I'll pimp that because I don't know if No Limits has been doing it. They should be doing it. I don't know if they're doing it. That's my feeling as a CEO. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Goodbye.